we are live on POZ Impact, Houston's first radio show dedicated to people living with HIV, their friends and family. We have a great show tonight. We currently have in the house Ian L. Hancock. He is a current executive director for Outcry, as well as he's the executive director for the Normal Anomaly, and he has a bunch of stuff. We had him on our show previously, and so when post that, he has done so many things in that short period of time that he's been on our show. He's done like so many things, and I'm so excited to talk to him about the things that we talked about in our previous show and how they became to life now already. You know, these things that we talked about, you know, churches and getting tested in churches. So we're going to go into all that, but I would like to introduce yourselves. And we have Ty, and he's so awesome. Thank you guys so much for coming. He currently hosts Thought to Ponder on T2P on Real Talk 100 Radio mornings, Monday to Friday. You can catch him 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. And then we have an exciting show tonight. We also have Latrice in the house. She is one of my good friends. And so we're going to go ahead and introduce everybody. Latrice, you want to go ahead and take us into our show? Tell us what you're about and what's your name. And
my name is Latrice Vessel, and I concentrate in the healthcare business. Oh, okay. Is this better?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, my name is Latrice Vessel, and I'm mainly in the healthcare business. I concentrate a lot with ambulance, EMS, things of that nature. I also help people get started with like personal care homes and assisted livings. I hold workshops on how to do that. Most people don't know that the homes that they're living in, that they can gross maybe $10,000 out of that with just having people over the age of 50 to live there. Most people are not wanting to go to nursing homes and retire in a nursing home. They're looking to retire in more like a home-like setting. And with that, I can show you how to operate that, how to get that business started and going with under the cost of maybe $3,000 to get it going. And this is something that can definitely grow because the healthcare business in Houston is extremely big and extremely large. And the baby booming population is studied, you know, getting to the fact where they may need that additional care or around the clock care. And then I also brought a friend with me. His name is Mo. I also manage him on the side. He's an R&B singer. He does gospel as well. And he came and he tagged along with me as well.
Thanks for that awesome introduction. Mm-hmm. And Mo, did you want to talk to you're a rapper, you said? You're a singer?
My name is Mo Melody. That's M-E-A-U-X, Melody. I'm a vocalist, primarily, entertainer, singer, songwriter, performing artist. You know, I hail from New Orleans, Louisiana, but I've been in Houston, Texas for about 14 years. You know, been doing little minor work around the city, open mics here. You know, you can find me on like some streaming platforms, but as of now, you know, Latrice been managing me. You know, we've been putting out projects. Expect a new project coming out 2020, like spring 2020. You know, and just new music, new vibes, and everything.
Make sure you send your music to Real Talk 100 Radio, and they'll play it for you here on the radio station. We're an underground music venue, so a lot of underground artists will give us your music. And if you have royalties, they do pay royalties here as well too. So send us an email. I'll give you the email address. But I'm super excited to have Ian with us tonight because not only was it a last minute decision, and I'm so grateful that he was so happy to be available because he's such a busy man. And I want to really, he's been doing such awesome work in the community. First launching his Outcry Doc-Series, that was a complete hit, sold out show, max capacity. I think there was like no seats left in that auditorium. It was such an amazing, just seeing a little bit snippet of what you have available, and it was so powerful. So without further ado, Ian, go ahead and introduce yourself and, you know, tell us what you're about, and I get to ask you some good questions because I'm so interested in what the work that you're doing is. I can't even speak to how amazing your vision is for somebody who doesn't currently have HIV.
Right.
You know, and so you can be an advocate without having HIV. And you know, like I was like, wow, all his friends are living with HIV mostly, and while he's not, he's still preaching hardcore, like if he would.
Yeah.
You know, and it's because the influence you have.
Yeah.
So if we can just go ahead and introduce yourself.
How do I follow that? So I am I'm Ian Haddock, Ian L. Haddock. I am the executive producer of Outcry, the mini doc found on Amazon Prime Video, and Outcry the Docu-Series, which is forthcoming in spring 2020, but it will be traveling the nation as the long form documentary will be traveling the nation, premiering in select cities. Soon, I am also the executive director of the Normal Anomaly Initiative, where our mission is we're a lot more alike than different. And so we push that message. And I also am happily, and this is not number 3 to me, all of these things are super important. I also am happily the president of Impulse Group Houston. Impulse Group is a international gay men's organization fighting for social justice and HIV advocacy. We're in 25 cities, 12 countries, and 5 continents. It is the only gay organization like this. So I am super elated to now be the president of the chapter here in Houston. So just excited to be here. I'm excited to be invited into spaces like this. It's always good. I say this every time I speak, but I owe my life to folks living with HIV. They literally, my friends, my father, my family members that are living with HIV literally have saved my life in more ways than one. And so the very least I can do is show up for them.
Wow, that's amazing. Titan Capri, I've met you just recently, but you're just an awesome soul to begin with, and now you have your own radio show here on the Talk 100 Radio on mornings. That has just spiced up my life a little bit, if I could say that. Listening to you really brings me some calmness for those 2 hours.
Right.
You know, from 8 to 10.
Right.
At least I can like gather my thoughts, think about something. So without further ado, just please introduce yourself to our listeners.
Well, I'm gonna be like Ian. I don't know how I can follow that. Like, just a little old show doing this. No, but I'm Titan Capri. I am, as Josh said, I just started with the Real Talk 100 Radio. I do the morning show, #T2P, and from 8 to 10. And I'm just trying to use my platform to inform, enlighten, and then also I am a 14-year HIV positive black gay male here in Houston. So just using the platform to do. I'm also a part of the documentary, which is Outcry the Docu-Series, and that's kind of how all this kind of started, right? Speaking your truth, standing up for what you believe in and who you are, and then letting others know that just because you are HIV positive, that doesn't mean your life is over. That doesn't mean that you have to fit in one mold, right? Because, we're, multi-dimensional. We do a lot of things. And so part of what I'm trying to do in the mornings on the radio show and then also in the documentary is just show them that you can be 48 years old, 14 years positive, and still be living and still breathing.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Yes.
That's pretty much.
That's amazing work, because I was just listening to a podcast of Houston Matters or of the Texas Standard on NPR, and they were saying how San Antonio currently has an epidemic for HIV. And so when the lady was like, oh, what makes San Antonio so rare? She's like, it's not rare. It's in Houston. It's in Dallas. The reason why we're not really talking about this is because it's now black and brown people who are infected.
Exactly.
And I was like, holy crap, that's exactly what we talked about on our previous show with Ian. You know, I was like, man, like that. How can that just all fit into one place? You know, when we first started talking this conversation, all the way till today, listening to that podcast and having you on my show today, just really brought everything to a more of a understanding that we have to start broadcasting even louder now.
Right.
Like, this is not the time to hide away from this truth and not hide time away. That's why, you know, your series is so impactful. So do you want to give our listeners a little bit more about your series and, you know, how we missed this sold out premiere? Is there going to be another premiere? How can people, I know that you already have one currently on Amazon, which I've seen it, which is amazing. How are you planning on having the other ones on Amazon as well too?
Yeah, so I want to, you know, I have to go back to go forward. I have to say something about people acknowledging it now that it's brown people and now it's a black and brown people epidemic. The reality is, I said this last time, I'm going to continue to stand on a mountaintop and say that the reason why HIV is important to all communities, especially communities of color, is because HIV is a racist, elitist, classist epidemic, right? This is far beyond sexuality. It's far beyond the type of sex you have, who you decide to sleep with, who you decide to love. This is about racism, this is about elitism, and this is about classism, right? When you see that the predominance of an epidemic sits at the intersections of race, that's racism. When you see that the predominance of the epidemic sits at socioeconomic factors, that's elitism and classism. This is not about sexuality. So that's why this conversation needs to be broadcasted, because for so long we've had this conversation in sex about sex,
Yes.
right? And so we need to begin to have this conversation on a larger platform, and that's what I wanted to do with the docu-series. I didn't want to talk about I didn't want to talk to the church. I thought I wanted to talk about the church when I first started. I started out, and nothing I ever start ends up like I want it to be. But I wanted to start to, you know, have a conversation with LGBT folks and those living with HIV about HIV and sexuality as it relates to the trauma in the church. But I am a solutions-based thinker, so the more I sat and listened to people's stories and thought about it, and I got other opportunities to like find funds or find avenues to continue to do this work, I said, no, we have to be solutions-based. And so I started reaching out to churches. And it took us a while to figure out, you know, what we were going to say to churches. So the answer to your question is, will it be on Amazon Prime Video? It probably will, more than likely. The reason why we haven't put it out is because once I sat down and I looked at the complete series, which no one has seen other than very few people in the series. Once I sat down and looked at it, I said I didn't feel like it ended in a place where people could be healed, where people could walk away with a call to action, where people could feel a connection. You know, we're not just talking about HIV. We're talking about what it's like to be a masculine presenting woman, or a feminine presenting man, or a trans person. We're talking about mental health. We're talking about what it looks like for straight women to get HIV. We're talking about what it looks like to be professional and not feel comfortable in the church, right? Whether you're LGBT or not, right? And so we're talking about all these things, and I did not feel like where it went gave me the closure that I needed. And so what we are now doing is now we are filming, because the weird part about the work is that when you really begin to do the work, when you really identify what your purpose, what your passion is the promise manifests, right? And so now the promise is manifesting, and what I'm seeing is, wow, people are really interested in the message. People are really interested in the work. And yes, they're uncomfortable talking about sexuality. Yes, they're uncomfortable at the church talking about what it means to be affirming or accepting. But there are steps. There are steps to take, and we're taking those steps, and we're filming those steps, and I am happy with where it's going.
That's amazing that you had, like, you kind of took a step back and saw the preview instead of like launching it out and just like, I want the public to see this, you know, immediately. I need a call to an action. I need this to happen. But you kind of took a step back and you said, hey, you know what? This is actually, the message is not ending the way I want it to. Let me pull it to make it have a call to action. Have this, you know, completing plea of saying, hey, this is affecting all of us.
Yeah.
Like, now we really have to bring awareness to just so much other than just HIV as well too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all the stuff that you guys are also working on that's like pertaining to you know, the black and brown people and church.
Yeah.
You know, and I think it's amazing that you just hosted. I'm gonna switch a little. I'm gonna go back a little or forward a little bit. You just hosted just recently the first ever HIV testing at a church. Huge, like, I want to like bow down to you right this second because that is just so freaking huge. You guys don't even understand how amazing and how much work that must have taken to not only get the community involved, because you do have to get the community involved, but also get the pastor and get the congregation to kind of accept that message. Because what does it really do if no one really gets tested? You know.
It was cool. So I just want to make sure I say, because you know the people will come and say that baby trying to be the first to do it. I am not trying to be the first to do it. There are a couple churches that have HIV testing programs that they do monthly, but there are not new churches jumping into it, right? They are the same churches. It's the Brentwoods, it's the Windsor Village, it's the St. John's. St. John's has had a ministry like that for 20 plus years, right? I think Windsor Village is at least a decade. Brentwood is at least 15 years.
So they actually provide HIV testing
during the service. During the service, actually, interestingly enough, Brentwood actually has a housing program for those living with HIV. So there are churches doing it, right?
Well, this is the first new church.
Yes.
Which is really important because when was the last church added?
Exactly. It ain't been in like a decade. But it's also because there is fear, right? There is fear around, like, if we start talking about HIV, then we have to talk about sex. If we talk about sex, then we have to talk about sexuality. But the reality is, we will christen your child, right? With nothing but godparents, but we won't pray for you if you get diagnosed with HIV. It happens the same way, right? They're happening the same way. And for clarity, so one of the things that I talked about with my spiritual covering, who happens to be the pastor, he's given me permission to say Pastor Decker at Greenhouse International Church. One of the things we talked about is that we have to pivot our conversation, right? In order to get to that conversation, we have to begin to pivot our conversation, and there has to be a bit of compromise, right? There is an acknowledgement when I'm talking about HIV, right, that we have to talk about sex. Well, maybe we're not ready to talk about sexuality. But if we are beginning to talk about sex, that could be enough. And something really interesting, because I don't want to like take over the conversation, but something really interesting happened. Well, two really interesting things happened. Number one, Mayor Turner sent a proclamation to Pastor Decker on my behalf, and former Councilwoman Jolanda Jones, my mentor, presented it to him. So his wife came up and she said on the mic, she said, "Y'all need to go back there and get tested. HIV is not a gay disease. It's a human disease." And I was just like, "Go ahead, Pastor Central." And then the second thing that really moved me is it was this young man who I have never seen ever in my life. He came up to me. He had a cast on his arm. And he came up to me because he thought I was leaving right after. And he came up to me and he said, "Can I have your number?" And I was like, "Sure." So I gave him my number, and he was just like, "I'm just so inspired by your conversation. I'm so inspired by what you're doing. I'm in a really bad place. I've been, being abused and abusing my partner, and I just want to be connected to somebody as positive to you." And I was like, "Yeah." And he was like, "And I just appreciate this church for accepting what you're doing." And he ended up joining this church, him and his partner that day. And so I'm hopeful.
Wow, it's amazing that at least you conquered the first step.
Yeah.
Is to accepting, getting a new church, and then maybe we can get 2, and maybe 3, and then 4, and then 5, and then
We will have 6.
We're gonna have
6 is the goal.
Well, awesome. Okay, 6 by the end of the year, or
so. I am not going to take over this whole interview.
Yes.
No, but 6. So we were blessed to be funded for a continuation of this project, and we are hoping to, in about a couple days, we should hear if we are fully funded for the continuation of this project. And the continuation of this project, which in Ian fashion will be filmed also, is to do cultural humility trainings for 6 churches that are LGBT/HIV related. There will be community-led trainings. We will be going around, probably back on here, probably going to the Positive Women's Network, going to the Positive Organizing Project to get community members. And I'm not looking for community leaders. I'm not looking for people that already have a microphone. I'm looking for people that are hungry, wanting to do the work. And we are going to get community members. We are going to pay community members to create these cultural humility trainings with some friends I have that have some technical skills with that. And we're going to pilot the cultural humility training in 6 churches. And in those churches, one of the deliverables will be to implement some type of testing and or outreach services in their church. So, yes, by November 2020, we will have 6 new churches that have some type of outreach or testing program in their service.
Wow, that's completely amazing. I'm so excited that you are working on this project. You call yourself a church boy or
church queen?
A church queen. And I was like, I guess this really makes perfect sense for somebody who's active in the church community to kind of do this work. Because that's one of my goals was to, when I didn't know anything about what you were doing, I just knew that churches was one of the things that we should start doing testing in.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't understand you. So when you came on my show and you're like, "Oh, this is what we're working on," I was like, "Oh my goodness!" Like, wow, just look at that. Just how you don't have to be the seed. You can just donate, or you can influence, or you can give your voice. You can utilize. Like there's so many different avenues that you can participate with you. Not only that's why I was so excited to bring you back on our show to talk about the amazing things that you're doing with your Outcry series as well that you premiered, and it was just everybody was like amazed by it, the entire show, and I can't wait for more people to be able to view what you have, this little gem that you're like kind of hiding from the world, but when it's released, I can't believe it's gonna like it's gonna blow up.
Yeah.
But I guess I'm hogging the mic a little bit.
I'm hogging the mic.
Latrice, did you want to come in here a little bit and talk about your services and how can people reach you and what are the costs up front? You know, the service that you're providing.
So you can reach me at area code 281-904-6949. That's the main line. I'm also on Instagram at Houston Medical Marketing Firm. And then my cost it varies for my my workshop. It's going to be $400. And with that, you'll get like a mentorship for like a week. You'll also get the necessary documents to start it off, to run your house, your protocols, your procedures. And then I have my consulting service where I do the one-on-one training. And it really depends on what you're trying to do with that and how long you need me. The cost is varied on that. And that's pretty much it.
Okay, all right. Titan Capri, I guess I want to go with you. You are an interesting guy as well too, because you've been in this community now for a while. Now that I learned a little bit more about you every day, listen to your show, just little things that you talk about. Yes, but at least I learned a little bit more, and it's just interesting to know where you've been and where you're at today, and how open you are about everything. And bringing a now much needed awareness. I used to watch your Facebook Lives before you were on the show. And so, you know, bringing that awareness to the radio must be a little bit, I don't know if it's weird or...
petrifying.
Like you have like a now much larger audience that you're talking to, and you're just being frank.
Yeah.
And I love you guys. I love the conversation you guys had with Ian. I think he was your first guest.
Yeah.
You guys like church, everybody in church that day. It was so
That's
powerful.
our Fire Fridays.
Yes.
Yes, our Fire Fridays. I was talking with Ian before, and I'm normally good because I can talk a lot, right? But then this radio show station was a whole nother beast. So I'm sitting here and I'm like, okay, what do I do? What do I say? Do I talk a whole lot? Do I shut up? What do I do? But what I was blessed with, you know, I'm spiritual. So what I was blessed with was a platform and a moment and a space and a place in order to speak on, you know, being HIV positive. And I've lived a lot, right? But I'm still new to HIV and what's going on and the community and things like that. So starting with the documentary, I basically opened up, or it was like pulling teeth, if you would, on Ian's part to get me to kind of say, hey, you know, like this is my truth, this is what's going on, so forth and so on. Once I was able to get over that hump, it took a little while, but once I was able to get over that hump, I was like, oh, whoa, so wait, I'm not the only one, right? I'm in my 40s, but I've experienced what someone newly diagnosed experienced, and a lot of people didn't know that I had went through what I went through with my diagnosis, how I got diagnosed, so forth and so on, or how I became HIV positive, period. And then this platform that I'm on, the radio show, has allowed me to be able to like stand in my truth and speak on it. And then I think that this is good, like the show that you have and others, and we're bringing people in from the community, like everybody sitting around the table here, to say, hey, this affects us all, right? We don't have to be against one another. We can just actually say, okay, you know what?
Yeah.
Why don't we have a sit down at the table, or a conversation, or just a radio show to where you can just be truthful and speak on it. So I had made a promise some time ago, which I broke that promise, and I thank God that I did, that I was going to go to my grave with my status and everything. I was never going to tell anybody, never going to do, and then I got to be a part of the documentary, and then the box opened, and I couldn't stuff it back in. I tried a couple of times. I was like, yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it. And I'm crying at everything, like, but every other day or so, I'm calling him saying,
so,
hey.
it's not like you. Like if you
Yeah.
meet somebody, if somebody meets you, you don't get that intimidation at all from you. You
Right,
don't get that fear.
right.
You don't get that
Right,
that level of uncomfortableness
right.
that somebody has. Like
Right.
I'm still new at my diagnosis, and so I still don't tell a lot of people. If they ask me, I will tell them.
Yes.
But I'm not gonna just offer it freely, advice, and that's just me.
Right.
And I'm still trying to get to know what my comfortable level is as well too.
Yes.
But to see you how you're just so comfortable and how you've gone through, it just also breaks down the barrier for me as well too. Saying, hey, I don't know if it's doing it for me, it's doing it for everybody else. So I'm grateful that you have this platform that I was able to meet you when I did, and how I met you.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, I was gonna say exactly. I said because I think everybody's journey is different, right? I was where you were, right, and I'm not too far gone, right? It's just I'm in these spaces and places with certain people, right? You see my thumb pointing this way. So when I'm in these spaces and places, I'm standing to the side or off, and I'm getting all of this energy and all of this positivity and all of this upliftment, and I'm thinking, man. So then I was like, okay, so if I just met 15 people that were going through the same thing, right?
Yeah.
Just like me and you sitting side by side right now, I didn't know, right? You know what I mean? I can speculate, but I didn't know. So I'm standing in this room. I went with Ian to a conference or an event, and I was in the room, and I told Ian, I said I was just soaking up everything. Beautiful people, lovely people, people that were of high stature, low. They were all in there, and it was all about HIV and stigma and things like that. And I was like, now if I can carry that, right, now that I've moved up a little bit, which I still think I'm down in the valley. I don't think I'm nowhere near the peak. I'm still in the valley. But if I can take that with me on the radio show, or just in the spaces and places that I'm in now, and be able to say, hey, I'm 14 years, or hey, the way that I was diagnosed was that I was raped, things like that. After you start saying it again and again, it becomes a little easier. I used to cringe every time somebody would say something to me, and I'm like, well, the situation that happened to me was blah, 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 blah. And then I had to stop chastising myself and just speak my truth, because it was always a situation.
Yeah.
I never called it rape. I never called it, but that's what it was, right? When somebody does something to you and you're not willing, you're not consenting, then that's rape. And for me to be a big old black man sitting here saying that another man raped me, it's wild, especially in our community, right? I'm from the hood.
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm straight from the hood, and you don't admit to things like that, but it's happening more often than not, right? And most of the time, what we do is we sit in it, or we sit on it, and we don't speak on it. So then what happens is it goes from me to whoever the next person is, and the next person, so on. So I said, from here on out, and I'm not going to monopolize the mic as well, but I said from here on out, what I will do is speak my truth. If I'm ever given a platform, i.e., Real Talk 100 Radio, or if I'm ever in a space or a place, I will speak my truth, because, like you said, there's somebody in the back there, right? Or like the guy that approached Ian, there's somebody back there that's saying, I wish that they knew what I was going through. Or I wish they would say something that includes me. Or I wish that they would, you know what I'm saying, represent who I am. And that's what I always felt. I felt like that was not me. I felt like I was different. I felt like I was, but you know what's crazy? Is that I was performing. I was doing Titan Capri. I was going to different clubs. I was doing pageants. I was doing all of this stuff, right? All along, sitting here, pretending to be somebody that I wasn't, right? I was somebody at home. I was somebody on stage. I was somebody in front of this person, that person. And then when I was diagnosed and everything went haywire, I literally fell out of the public eye, just went away. Because I was afraid, number one, I didn't know what was happening. Everything was crazy like that. And then, number two, I did not want to infect anybody else. Because I felt like what he had did to me was wrong. And then if I did it to somebody else, I wouldn't be able to live with myself. You know what I mean? Yeah. So I kind of went away from that. But then here, just this year alone, I have been so many places to where people have said, oh, your story inspired me. Oh, your story did this, your story did that. And a lot of people didn't know. A lot of my friends and my circle that were around me never knew. They didn't know anything about HIV status, how I got HIV, any of that. I had literally lied to the people that I told how I got HIV because I didn't want to seem weak. I didn't want to seem like somebody had taken advantage of me, which was all true, right? Because they did take advantage of me. I don't believe that I was weak, right? But in that time frame, I was in my head. And in my head, I was weak. I let my guard down. What if I'd have never got in that car? What if I'd have never went to that apartment? What if I'd have never did this? It was always that, right? So now I'm at a place to where I'm able to come on in the mornings and talk about real talk stuff, real issues, real problems. And then I can be Titan Capri, 14 years HIV positive, a black gay man. You know what I'm saying? All these labels that they put on us, I can be all of that and still be good with myself when I leave or when I go home, right? So that's pretty much it. I think I monopolized.
No,
like, quite a bit
I have 2 more. I have an hour and a half more.
Oh,
So
okay.
you guys gonna continue to talk, but I have more questions.
Right.
So this is great. You know, I just want to say, you know, also thank you on behalf of. I'm not one of the owners of Real Talk 100 Radio,
Right.
but I'm so grateful that I don't know how it reached out that you got involved with Real Talk. I don't know who was the person to contact, but I was like, when they announced that you were taking over the morning shows,
Right.
I was like, oh my goodness, like that is like, why didn't I think of this? Like he is the perfect guy. And when I
right.
started to listen to you, it felt I felt empowered
Well, thank you.
even
Thank you.
more.
Thank
And
you.
you giving me credit as like, oh,
Yeah.
you know, like I'm just following your example. I'm like, no, I'm trying to follow your example. You're like, you are like my leader.
Well,
yeah.
as Ian, no, I was gonna say as Ian. That's different because I told Ian, I said I really dig what Josh is doing in the evenings. You know what I'm saying? Because it's crazy. Number one, for us to be HIV positive, and I hate like sometimes people say, oh, you're just harping on HIV positive. No, I'm not. I'm saying this is what it is. And then for you to label your show, everybody out there in Radio Land, you can't see me pointing to the sign behind me, but to label it POZ, right? Like that's huge. That's huge. And if you thought it was small, think again, because there it goes again. I was the one in the back saying, okay, Ian, who is he? What is he doing? Like, what is he? Wait.
Yeah.
So his radio show is called POZ? Like, wait. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that back when I was diagnosed, that was unheard of. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And then kudos out to Real Talk 100 Radio, to the owners here. And then to answer your question, Danita was the one that I contacted, right? Because I had saw that you all had put out a post about
Yes.
slots and things like that, right? And I saw that you all had put out a post, and I was like, oh man. So I thought I had missed the mark. So I contacted Danita and said, hey, I don't know if y'all are still looking, if y'all want, whatever have you. But if so, then, you know, let me come on in and do what I do. 20 minutes here, 15 minutes here, whatever it is you want to give it to me. And then it would be a blessing that I would turn around and have the radio show in the mornings. So I'm saying kudos to y'all for doing what you're doing. Kudos to you again, because I'm not going to let you downplay it. I'm not going to let you say that that's not what it is. That's huge, right? Just like with the work that Ian is doing with the
Yes.
churches and things like that. If we keep it in the forefront, if we keep it on the tongues, if we keep it moving forward, then there's no way that they can deny who we are and what we are and what we're doing, right? So there's no way that you can actually deny what it is that we're doing and the movement that we're actually making. And I'm over here thinking I'm just a little bitty fish in the pond. I'm just doing the show in the mornings and trying to add my little flavor and stuff to it. And then I'm thinking, man, how awesome is it that not only do I come to terms with my HIV, you know, being positive, and then documentary, show, just things are just happening, right? And then I'm like, okay, it's not as hard as I thought it was. It's
Yeah.
not as bad as I thought it was. But then I'm gonna say this and then I'm gonna go ahead and shut it down.
you're
But the last thing was the way that all of the hands reached out, right?
yeah.
To hold on to me, to lift me up, to move me forward when I thought that there was really no community out there like that. Sometimes you get burnt by the community, right?
Yes.
I'm not going to tell you I don't love my LGBTQ plus community. However, sometimes you get burned by the community because you are looking for a space to where you're safe and you think you can move in, and then you feel like that space or that place is like a runaway train. Like you're trying to, or like double dutch. You know the double dutch?
I don't know.
You know how you stand on the outside and you're rocking back and forth, ready to jump in, you know what I mean? So it's kind of like that. And so with all that being said, I want to say thank you for shows like this. I want to say thank you for the radio, Real Talk 100 Radio, for what they're actually doing. And then also bringing, shining a light on things like this, because we are out there. We're out there. Like I said, when I came over here the first time, or when you were all at the other location.
Yes, yes.
I was like, okay, so.
Your guys one of our original shows.
Yeah, they're talking about everything on this show. And I told him, I said, I live. Like, I'm living right now. Like, they're talking about everything from, excuse my French, woody to the tooty, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I was like, oh. And I was like, I want to be a part of that. And then just as luck would have it, always the blessings would flow.
Yes.
Here I am today, so.
And we were so lucky to have like snagged you up. I can't even believe that you even were available, but it just shows that I don't like to say God because I don't really believe in all that stuff. But
I like to say the universe.
The universe.
I like to say
Yes,
the universe opens
just,
up, right?
Yes, it did. It really just the way that I met you, the way that I met Ian. I just everything felt just so natural,
right? Exactly.
And how it was just meant to be.
Exactly.
But we just have a new guest that arrived, Derrick Broze. He is currently running for City of Houston mayor. So I want to give a quick shout out to him for coming on our show last minute as well too. But thank you so much for being here. And I know you were at another event previously, so thanks for like making it like a double feature tonight. But go ahead and introduce yourself and so we can ask you some questions.
Sure, absolutely.
And our listeners as well too.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you guys for having me out and just kind of jumping into the conversation. I appreciate all you guys are sharing. It's really important.
Okay.
So, again, my name is Derrick Broze. I'm 34 years old. I'm a lifelong Houstonian. I've been campaigning for mayor since May. I am on the ballot. When folks are already voting for early voting, or if they vote on the 5th, I'll be number 6 on the ballot. I'm coming from a completely different background than any of the other 12 candidates, especially the folks that are putting on TV, that are, the main candidates that put in front of people. I spent the last 10 years in Houston as an activist and as a journalist working to, expose corruption, both as it relates to, I focus a lot on technology surveillance issues, but also a lot on indigenous struggles. My work has taken me everywhere from Ferguson to Standing Rock to, reporting on high-profile cases and everything in between that, as well as focusing on what's going on here in Houston. And I started out as an activist in 2010, and just along the way, started just kind of teaching myself about journalism. Put my camera in the face of the police chief and realizing, hey, they don't like when you ask a tough question. They like to dodge it, or they like to run away from it.
Right.
Kind of realizing, actually, that wasn't too hard. That was just a little bit of homework and a camera, And along the way, just started to get into, making it become my full-time gig. So outside of this campaign, I write articles full-time. I do video reports. I've got a YouTube channel. I also have a radio program on Fridays on 90.1 that I've been doing since 2011. And in my time as an activist and as a journalist, I've learned firsthand that the city of Houston is not functioning in a way where the average person, I would say everybody sitting here at this table, is listened to or has a voice at the table. And it's not even to the extent that we don't have a voice at the table, but that the local systems are set up in a way to specifically exclude people. It's not by accident. I'll just say that. So I decided, after doing everything I could as an activist, everything from building community gardens, protest rallies, civil disobedience, documentary screenings, what have you, anything that comes up, like if there's a need for it, I'm there. I'm happy to be involved with that. And also, on the journalistic side of things, having the current mayor, the previous mayor, the current police chief, and the previous police chief run away from my camera several times. The current mayors ran away from me 4 different times on camera from the questions I was asking. That, if I go to city council, they tell me, ding, 2 minutes, your time's up. Thank you, have a nice day, no response. If I go to the press conferences and I go to the public events, they try to put their bodyguards between me. They try to hit my camera. They try to just run away. And I figured, if I enter this race, bringing the issues to the table that I feel important, as well as the things that people have brought to my attention, then they can't just run away, right? So now for the past 5 months, I've been able to be on the debate stage, on the forum stage, sitting next to the mayor, sitting next to some of the other candidates, and able to call them out directly and say, hey, look, this guy is not, what he's promoting himself at. This person is up to this and that. And so it started out in a way of really seeing that that the system's not working on a local level. There's so many folks who are paying attention to say, what's Donald Trump up to, what's the federal government up to, and maybe have a blind eye, deaf ear to what's going on in our own backyards. And being the fourth largest city with oil and gas, there's lots of money going around. There's lots of backroom deals. There's lots of your tax dollars being used in different ways. But unless you go downtown and spend the time there, which another thing, it's not convenient. It's Tuesday at 2:30 when most people are trying to work or go to school. You got to take off work or get a babysitter or whatever to be there. Just seeing these things that I realize it's time to bring a new message to the race and to try to inject some of the core issues that I'm talking about. And I hope we'll have some time to talk about, I'm a felon. I'm the only felon in the race. I'm also the youngest person in the race. 15 years ago when I was 20 years old, after I got out of high school, I got into drugs and kind of went down that road. And I went to prison, turned 21 in prison, and that was the beginning of me really starting to shift the direction I was going. And I grew up in a family of drug addicts and alcoholics. My earliest memories are visiting my father in prison. He actually OD'd and passed away last summer from his own addiction that he was never able to, kind of come to terms with. So the criminal justice system, mass incarceration, the drug war is something that I know very closely and have lived. And so it's also very important to the campaign and the things I'm talking about.
Speaking about that, and also bringing it right back to HIV, Houston's currently the number 12 city in the nation with new HIV diagnosis. When we're looking at San Francisco, Atlanta, they're spending millions of dollars, in campaigns. As a city of Houston, in tax money, would you support funding the HIV community and so the city is responsible for prevention, and the county is responsible for care. And so what we really do need is prevention. We need a very detailed campaign, not only campaign, but making PrEP available, making HIV testing available, making it a normal status that you can sure get tested, like having an ordinance where all providers do an HIV test as a regular, and that's something that can be done as a city council and put in mayor. And as mayor, you have full control of what the city council does. So would you support HIV funding through Houston taxpayer money?
I think that seems to me a good use of taxpayer dollars, and I appreciate, for one, this is if I would say, outside of my desire to win, to change things, right? The experience has brought these kinds of conversations to me, where I live in 5th Ward. I've been able to go all over the city, rich, poor, black, white, trans, everything in between. Huge diverse city. You know what I mean? So it's through connecting with these communities where I'm not versed in this issue as obviously as well as you guys. So this would be the community that I come to and say, hey guys, I'm in the position now. Let's sit down at the table. Let's have these conversations. Because again, I think that no matter which community you're talking about, whether it's felons, HIV community, LGBTQ+, if I'm outside of that community, I can listen and I can try to amplify the concerns, but I don't have a direct experience, right? So my issue for so long has been, in these situations, some people coming into power and they don't give you a seat at the table, right? They just kind of speak for you, or things like that. I'm definitely interested in prevention. I think, like you said, is key. And as far as the city's role, that's what the role of the city takes.
And right now we pay $0, so zero is a big zero.
The city has zero funding.
Zero funding through your taxpayers. So they say, there's grants, and there's money here, there's money there, there's money available through other avenues, but the city of Houston, and that's what the city of Houston provides. They provide resources, but they don't actually provide the money behind it. But just also integrating that as well too. Would you support a bill supporting clean needle exchange as well too? Because we see that identifying with drug use. We see that people are not going to change their mind about using drugs, but we can't provide them with the safe needle so that they don't spread any kind of diseases to one another.
Absolutely, 100%. This is an area where I'm a little more versed in because, again, like I said, the drug war is something that I've been through as well. And part of the programs that I'm calling for is stop treating people like criminals and treat those who actually do have addiction problems, who want help, like patients. And there's also the reality, like you were saying, is folks are going to use. I mean, the drug war hasn't stopped anybody from using drugs. All it's done is just created the largest prison population in the world, right? I mean, so we have to accept that the laws to prohibit certain drug use do not work. And that's why, as mayor, I'm calling for ending the drug war, starting with decriminalizing cannabis, and as the first step in that direction. Because I think that, again, instead of locking people up for their personal use, which is only going to get them stuck in that legal system, and a lot of times people have mental health issues there. They have, like for me, my drug use was the result of the depression I've been dealing with for so long. I tried to kill myself 3 times before I was 18. By the time I found drugs, it was like, oh, this is what I was looking for. This is that high I was chasing, right? And it didn't, now I can kind of reflect back and see it clearly, but at the time I didn't know, I didn't think, oh, I'm depressed, so I'm going to eat these drugs. It was just kind of the way things rolled along. And so somebody like me in that position, I needed somebody to talk to, more than I needed to be thrown in a cage with a bunch of other people and just seen as, one size fits all, because there's no specific individualized treatments. It's just, I was locked up with a kid who got caught with 1 pill at high school, and then a 20-year-old career criminal who had no interest in change. It's like, we're all in the same room, we're all in the same space, so there's no individualized treatment. And folks who are coming in and who need genuine help, or who aren't ready to get help, but like you said, let's at least make it where their use is going to be done in a safe way. Unfortunately, I have lost several friends to drug overdose, specifically to, using needles, or shooting up, just in the last 3 or 4 years. And, I did everything I could to try to be there as a friend, to not push him away, but also let him know, like, I'm here, to help you, to be a resource, and to just, be a friend to you. So absolutely, I think that's the kind of approach we need to take, as opposed to lock people up, stigmatize people. And again, 15 years after the fact, a felony that I got when I was 20 years old is still affecting me. If I wasn't an entrepreneur and a journalist, and I was having to go out and just apply for a regular day job, you guarantee it would still be coming up. And I can't get rented. I love the Fifth Ward, but one of the reasons I'm there is because I can't get rented anywhere else in the city. Nobody will. 15 years. That happened when I was 20 years old. I'm about to turn 35 in December, and I'm still dealing with the repercussions of that. So we have to start taking a whole new look at the way we deal with drugs, the way we deal with criminalization, and the health issues revolving around that. So I'm definitely in favor of clean needle exchanges, as well as programs that, again, give people an opportunity to be treated like patients as opposed to just criminals.
So you answered my next question, which was going to be legalized marijuana, and so right now we currently have a district attorney that's running Audia Jones.
Yeah, Audia's a
and
good friend.
I love her to death. I support her 100%. She was also on my show.
Awesome.
And she said that she wants to completely decriminalize marijuana. Not give you a class, nothing. It's no longer, we're not arresting for this
right
at all.
$0.
$0.
So think about this. Like you said, we have a DA already, Kim Ogg, who has done the diversion program, right? And the diversion program, as I'm sure Audia made it clear, is not decriminalization.
Correct.
You
Yes.
still get okay, it's better you're not going to jail, but you got to pay a fine, you got to go to class, right? Well,
And
even
if you
that
don't,
might
then
not be possible for some people.
Then you end right back in jail.
Exactly.
So.
You could still end up back in the system. So to me, just like what Audia is calling for, let's scrap that program, right? So think about this situation. Harris County, which is the county that Houston's in. If you have a DA, for those who aren't familiar, when you get arrested or something, the cops got to call the DA and say, hey, we got somebody for weed, and the DA says, yes, let's bring him in and take the charges, or no, I'm not interested. So we already got a DA saying we're not going to go full on with that. And if Audia wins, then she's saying from the DA's office we're not even going to go near that charge. As a mayor, you also get to pick the police chief, and I would not be keeping the current police chief because we could talk all night about that. But he's been involved with violence against people. Bye, Felicia. He's been involved with violence against people in the form of no-knock raids, police surveillance, and we could go on about that. My point is, as a mayor, I would be specifically looking for a police chief, somebody from within the ranks. I want to bring in somebody who is from Houston, who has that experience, but also somebody who knows that that time has come to an end. We don't need a police chief who has any interest in continuing the drug war, continuing mass incarceration. So think about that. You end up with a situation where the DA, the chief of police, and the mayor have basically stepped off and said, we're not touching weed cases. And that's, to me, is just the start. And I think Audia has similar goals as far as that, cannabis being the beginning of starting to decriminalize things. Because, and my plan kind of goes as well to the business end, not only for the health aspect. Cannabis is medicine. It's just a fact. Cannabis is medicine for a lot of people. That's what helped me get off crystal meth. Cannabis helped me get away from that world so I could get myself together, So I think we need to start giving people the option to, as far as I'm concerned, it should be treated like basil or tomato plant. Nobody's hassling you if you pick up, tomato, you go buy one from your buddy, like it's the same thing. So my vision is basically take the state, the local government out of the way and remove them from the relationship, and then it just becomes two adults exchanging goods or doing business together, and whether that means use it medicinally, recreationally. And one other issue I do want to bring up on that point is just in the last 3 months, industrial hemp has become legal in Texas, right? Yeah. It's kind of the part of the process that started here. So what I'm calling for is that Houston needs to embrace this. Now, there's going to be a hemp rush going on. It's already started, but it's going to become more obvious in the next year or two in Texas. Now, it's either going to be Austin, it's going to be Dallas, or it's going to be Houston. And Houston, we already have over in the East End, the former coffee plant has been purchased and turned into a hemp production factory.
I was gonna say,
We have a plan that we're calling Hemp Houston that addresses crime, it addresses flooding, it ends the drug war, where we decriminalize cannabis. We also want to, I'm already working with some local students and some researchers. I've been working with the Buffalo Bayou Partnership. We want to start planting hemp and other native plants along the bayous and the waterways because hemp drinks a lot of water. It also gets deep roots, so it can help with flooding and erosion. Also, some studies have shown hemp pulls toxins out of the soil. It can pull carbon out of the air. I mean, it really is just this amazing plant, you know, from the creator, from however you want to say it, right?
Yes.
From Mother Nature.
From the universe.
Exactly, from the universe, I guess. So, you know, and also, that hemp's going to have to be harvested. Well, there you go. You got a new line of jobs. You know, some people, we've also talked about, hey, maybe as the folks who want to get off the streets addressing the homeless issue, we start bringing them into that industry where now they have a way to make an income. You know, so we're talking about regreening Houston, bringing more urban farms, more community gardens. We want to bring food forests, start planting hemp along the bayous and the waterways, and really, hashtag Hemp Houston is what we're calling it. We want to turn the Petro Metro into the Hemp Houston. And even on the kind of energy, you know, that's the old nickname that some folks call Houston, but it's like, no, that's old hat. You know, we need to move forward, and especially oil and gas.
Hemp Houston, I like that. Hashtag Hemp Houston, guys. Hemp
So
Houston.
the thing about this, part of the plan is if we can work, because, you know, again, lots of money, billions of dollars into oil and gas in the industry. When you start talking about shifting away from that, people go, oh no, I'm not ready to go there. So we want to start with, just to start, incentivizing the oil and gas companies. Put even 5% of your profits into hemp for fuel research, because there's more and more studies showing that hemp, not only can it be used for clothing, for fiber, but hemp outdoes ethanol, which is, you know, corn-based fuel that we already put in. Hemp can provide a cleaner fuel. So if we start shifting, using hemp for medicinal purposes, recreational, welcome, we're calling, you know, we want to turn Houston into a cannabis sanctuary city where bring your business here, bring your, you know, your cannabis entrepreneurs, bring your medicinal patients here, and also the hemp on the industrial side.
I mean, we're gonna need a new governor for that, but
well,
I like your vision.
Okay.
I love your vision
for
behind
me,
it.
On the governor thing, and I understand where you're coming with that. Like, I think we shouldn't sit around and wait for the federal government to finally pull their head out of their butt and realize that we need some medicine, because they're still stuck on like even like let's say the Democratic presidential candidates right now. One of the forerunners, you know, Biden, not to get too lost into it, is saying, well, we want to change the schedule. Like, all right, man, we had the drug war for how long now, and that's all you guys can do. You want to move it and treat it like cocaine now? You know, like that's still not anywhere near progress. So I don't think we should wait for the federal government or even the state before we move. I think we could make Houston look like Houston. So it wouldn't even involve passing new laws. Like I said, it would just be take our hands off it. You effectively decriminalize it with the DA stepping away, the mayor stepping away, the police chief. So there's no new laws that need to be passed. We just say, hey, when you're in the city of Houston limits, we're not bothering you for it. You know.
Man, that's amazing, you guys. So how can people reach you real quick?
So DerrickBroze.com, that's BROZE.com is my website. Of course, we're on Facebook, Instagram, Derrick Broze for Mayor. And definitely we could use all the support at the moment. You know, we're out there. I was at U of H this morning. We're really trying to focus on, you know, not only typical voters, but definitely non-traditional voters. I will say that a lot of the people that are supporting my campaign are people who, I mean, I've heard this dozens and dozens of times over the past few months. I've never voted before, but I'm going to vote for you. If they have voted, maybe it was a presidential election, but they've never paid attention locally. And so that's one of the kind of goals is we're trying to get people to realize that there's a lot we could do in our community. I'm not saying don't pay attention to the presidential, but when the media is focusing on the presidential race for 2 years, and there's a mayoral election 8 days away, and people still don't even know what's going on. I've met several people this week and like, what? That's next week? You know?
Yeah.
And so part of the process is just like letting people know that this is happening. And for me personally, I think it's kind of by design. You know, you get people worried about something they have less control over as opposed to paying attention to their own backyard where they could have a big impact. So because of that, we have had some media pushback. I've been on Channel 39, I was on Channel 2, Channel 26, but we also have had to deal with some censorship from local stations who, you know, have been playing funny games and different neighborhood groups. And currently Facebook has us on some ban until Thursday. So if you go search our page, you'll see all the stuff I've been posting. But for the last week, it won't pop up in your newsfeed. It's just silly things. I've given no answer why 10 days before the election they banned our page. But you know, so but every challenge of course presents an opportunity. So we're like, all right, let's focus on our ground game. So we've been out there block walking this weekend. We're doing phone banking. We've been hitting up TSU and UHD and U of H and all the campuses. Unfortunately, so far the first week of early voting, the numbers have been even lower than in 2015, especially on campuses. And this is the first time in history, especially for TSU, that a historical black college has voting on campus. and so far the numbers at U of H and TSU have been extremely low. I think the students are going to come out on the November 5th, which is when a lot of people come out. So I'm like, hey, don't stress on them, because I saw at this event they were telling the students, what has been given to you can be taken away, and I don't know if that's the message I would send.
Exactly.
Like it's kind of
Exactly.
already punishing them, like you guys are failing.
Right.
Instead, encourage them. Why? To me, the reason so many people, especially a younger generation, and I mean broadly, like say 40 and under, don't pay attention, I feel, is because when they look at the issues, they don't hear things that, like the conversations we're having here.
Yeah.
It's exclusively focused on like potholes or infrastructure. And not to say that Houston has the best roads or that those issues don't matter, but I don't really know too many people who are jumping out of bed early to go vote on potholes.
Right,
Yeah.
right.
When there's a lot
right.
bigger issues going on than I feel.
Exactly.
So
Yeah.
I'm the kind of candidate saying like, why not use this position to do something? Not just for the people who are rich and older and have property, because the reality is most of the voters in Houston are 64 and older and tend to be white, and nothing against those folks, but those are the only ones getting their voices heard right now. So if we're going to use this democratic representation system for the moment, which is what we got, we got to make use of it. And,
Right.
I'm saying this is somebody who's never voted locally either. I've just been focused on what can I do as a journalist and as an activist, and I figured, let me see what I can do in this realm. And so far, people have been responding really well. We don't have the money to do the TV ads every day, but we're running, radio ad here and there. We're doing the ground game. We're doing social media. We're doing word of mouth, and people are definitely responding. So I really appreciate, the opportunity to come out here and meet and talk with you guys, because this is where it's at for me. This is like the community. This is why I'm doing this. Win or lose, this is why I'm doing this.
Exactly.
What's your what do you think about, or what are your thoughts about Metro Next?
I'm not in favor of Metro Next. This is something I've been looking at more recently. The reason I'm not in favor is because I don't think, well, for one, in some regards, when you look at the plan, it's essentially giving Metro like a blank check for the next 15 years. They're promising these different projects they're going to do, but there's no hard and fast deadlines on like, we're going to have this accomplished by this date. We're going to have, but they're asking the taxpayers to basically, hey, give us a 15, I think it's what, 5 billion something, it's in the billions.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money that's going to be coming out of our pockets over the next 15 years. And there's, they have a sort of a vision outlined, but I believe they're taking the wrong approach. We already have the light rails, which, and you look at the statistics, they're not used very often. I mean, they already spent how much, millions of dollars on that, and that system doesn't even get used. I'm a biker. I bike all around Houston. I've also been hit on my bike a few times. I understand the need for, we need to have a way for people to walk and bike,
Right.
and we're also a driving city. How do we find that? How do we make it easier? Traffic's a continuing issue. So obviously, something needs to be done. But personally, for me, the solutions that I see being put forth are just more bureaucracy, more money coming out of our pockets, and I don't think it's the long-term solution.
Right.
That's just my view.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I was gonna go vote for the Metro Next, but once I really started hearing from other candidates and really start digging into the nitty gritty, it is just a blank check that we're giving them.
Yeah.
There's no specifications what they're doing. And when asked about what will they plan on doing with what about the current riders?
Mhm.
You talk about future riders. What about your current riders who don't have a stand? If I take a bus, it takes me like 3 or 4 buses just to get to one destination.
Yeah.
And I own a pet sitting company, so I have multiple clients a day, and I usually will just end up, if my car breaks down, I have to take the bus, and because I have to make a living.
Yeah.
But if I miss one bus, I have to take an Uber because I can't wait another hour. And some of the places that I've taken a bus, all it has is just a pole.
Oh yeah.
There's no sidewalk. There's no street behind it. There's no
So it starts
bench.
raining, you're getting rained on.
Yeah, exactly. And if you don't have your umbrella, then you're pretty much a goner.
Yeah.
So I was like, what are you gonna do about the current people that you're currently serving? And there's really no plan to serve to put an infrastructure, or a covered area
Yeah. Like
that-
basic things like
basic
that.
things.
Super basic.
that everybody needs. Every bus structure, every bus stop should have something like that because it rains in Houston all the time. In a blink of an eye, it could just start raining.
Yeah.
And what if you're taking the bus? Then that means you're wet.
Yeah.
Right.
Well, I've been there before. I've definitely been the soggy one on the bus before.
Yes.
But you're making a good point, man. Is that we have these basic issues about the transportation system we already have, and those aren't being addressed. But they're asking for more money. More.
And nobody, what I was telling my friends is they want to put a light rail from here to Hobby. Who currently rides the metro except for the rodeo season?
Yeah.
If it's not rodeo, nobody rides that metro rail. Yes, I do know that people do ride it, but it is not packed like the subway system. It's not like New York or London or, but Bill King made an interesting argument. Houston has like 600 people per capita, where everybody else has like 30,000 or 60,000.
We're just very
You know,
spread out.
yes. So if you have 6,000 versus 30,000, it makes sense where only like a 10% of the population would ride the bus, you know, because it really doesn't make any sense to drive.
Exactly.
But you know, I was like, oh no, I'm not about this Metro next plan. But anyways, moving forward, right now the city of Houston is currently fighting with HFD. I'm not even sure why. I do know why, but I'm not sure why he's made it last this long,
Sure.
other than just being vendetta towards them because they're no longer supporting them. What is your plan to address HFD and giving them the raise that they need?
So first off, I mean, right off the bat, like I said, it's the fact that the city has become, I don't want to say, you know, divided, but there's definitely some element of that where people feel like, oh, well, no, we got to come out on the side of the cops or come out on the, you know, the side of the firefighters. I personally think the mayor turned it into that issue when it didn't need to be that issue. And even though, looking back where we're at now, okay, so Proposition B has been ruled unconstitutional by the courts. But either way, let's get beyond that. The fact of the matter is, over 200,000 people in Houston showed that that's what they want. So even if that particular language is unconstitutional, they already showed what they want. They want a raise. So find a way to make it happen is kind of where I'm at. Like, you know, because, you know, again, if this democratic representation is what we're supposed to have, if the people go vote and then you can just turn around and flip and basically sue the voters essentially and overturn it, I mean, what kind of message does that send? For one, it's again that message that I started with, that you're not being listened to. You know, think about the people who are like, yeah, I'm going to go vote because I want the firefighters, and nope, we're not going to do it. So for me, again, going back to some of the programs I'm talking about, like ending the drug war. So the diversion program with cannabis saved the city and the county $35 million in 2 years, just 2 years, and that's just the diversion, not full like leave people alone kind of thing. So we'd be saving even more money. They could argue, well, we'll lose money because people won't take this class, but that, you know, I think that they're not seeing the long-term benefits.
Yeah.
So if we were to end the drug war alone, and that's one of my 9 main points, even that one little piece would lead to hundreds of millions within 5 years, if not more. And to me, that funds could be used to pay the firefighters. It could be used to rebuild a lot of the problems that we're already having. We also have some other ideas. You know, again, my kind of tagline is expose corruption, amplify the voices of Houstonians. And every one of the points that I'm bringing up on our website, the 9 core points of our platform, are issues that you can see. Here's another area you didn't have a voice in. Here's another area you didn't have a voice in. So they're either issues where you never got to vote. It's not even like the situation with the firefighters. Well, you did have a vote, but they're just ignoring you. These are other situations where the mayor and the city council just pass a budget. For just as one example, the city of Houston, the Houston Police Department, uses devices known as stingrays. These stingrays are cell phone surveillance tools. And as a journalist, I worked with the Chronicle to expose these in 2012. I got the city council records and the contracts, and I brought them to the chief of police, and he's told me to my face when I'm holding the contract, I can't confirm or deny that program exists. But we know it exists, and that's been since 2012. So the city council every couple of years just re-signs the contracts, and this is hundreds of thousands of dollars of taxpayer dollars going towards this secret surveillance tool that HPD won't tell us anything about. But there was never a vote from the city of Houston. Are you okay with your police department using this? And again, I think that we're in a place now that more and more people are starting to, I think, be aware of police accountability issues and social justice issues and generally mass incarceration, where I think Houston should start leading the charge, at least in Texas, on pushing back and questioning. Now, I'm not saying let's strip all the police of all the tools they need to be an effective department, but there are plenty of times when these cops will swear to you they need this cell phone surveillance tool, and they can't tell you why, but they need it. They promise they need it. And I just don't find that acceptable, that if we as taxpayers are paying for something. So that's one issue that, as part of my campaign, we're not calling for like, hey, let's ban that tool. Instead, what we're saying, I want to do an audit for the entire police department and show us, okay, you have this cell phone surveillance tool, you have this. Show us as much of what you can, and then let the people of Houston decide. Okay, they have this tool, they have this tool, they have this tool. Proposition A, do you want the police to have this tool? Yes or no? Do you want them to have this tool? And let the people of Houston decide. My guess is the people of Houston are going to want to feel safe in their homes and not want their privacy invaded. Most people don't even know this is going on, but I have a feeling once they're aware, they're going to be like I've seen this campaign, people are like, what? That's happening? And I didn't realize this was going on. And so if we did that, if some of those programs come to an end, there's another $1 million right there. When I asked Sylvester Turner at a press conference in April about this firefighter issue, I was at a press conference and I said, are there any programs in the budget that you have looked at that could be cut, anything out there that, that would help free up some money to help pay the firefighters. He told me, we're scraping the bottom of the bucket. We're scraping the bottom of the bucket. There's nothing else we can do. And the two things that I just named to you guys would make hundreds of millions of dollars, would free up hundreds of millions of dollars easily within years or nearly immediately with the surveillance issue. And there are several others, as well as I'm sure other programs that I'm not aware of yet, that once we get in there, we start looking at things and seeing like, hey, this is wasteful money. Because unfortunately, a lot of the funds and a lot of things that are happening downtown, we're not paying attention on Tuesday and Wednesday afternoon, are going to their buddy's pocket, and
Right.
a lot of this has come up in this campaign. People are starting to become aware of that. So I think if we can get to the root of that corruption, help give the people a voice in these different areas, whether that's the HIV community and elsewhere, then we're going to start to see that, hey, we've been told we're broke and we don't got money to do all this, fix the potholes, pay the firefighters. I don't buy that. I think that's kind of the noise we've been told for a while now.
Right.
And I don't think that reflects the reality of what we're dealing with as a city as a whole.
No, that's thank you for informing us, because I really didn't know all that stuff either. What about the Green New Deal, or we talk about infrastructure as well too, in the potholes, but part of that is because Houston is so big. We have concrete everywhere. I-10, I just read there was a petition that signed that for people to the government to find a way that I-10 it won't flood. Like, why does it keep on flooding? Why does this freeway become underwater when there's a little bit of rain that happens, like a Milda? Yeah. Milda came and went, and thankfully we just got a band of it. But if we would have gotten 30 inches, 40 inches from Milda,
right,
we would have been screwed.
Yeah, you're right.
Even more than we were beforehand. So what do you plan on doing with?
I'm sorry.
Yeah, yes.
I'm just gonna say. So we're having this, and I'm just gonna say for somebody, treat me like I have a 5th grade education, but I'm holding up 4 fingers. You know what I mean? Like sometimes when you hear politicians talk or you hear these political views, you're thinking, okay, we are paying tax dollars, we're doing all of this, and you all can't pay. Not to mention the fire department, but then you can't fix the potholes. You can't. But there are condos and buildings just shooting up everywhere, all over the city, and you can't tell me that something new. And I'm not against what you're saying, but I'm saying so something new has to come about in order for us to change something old. When we are the 4th largest city, this makes no sense to me. So I'm sitting here saying, I'm paying my tax dollars. You taxing me on everything.
Everything.
And then, so you're going to give us a light rail, a projection over the next 15 years, where you're giving all this money to them to do what? Well, you still haven't fixed what's going on right here.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking to myself, I know about the hymn, I get that, but what is it that we're doing with this money that we have to I don't know, it kills me, because for those of us who don't know about politics, for those of us who are looking to go vote, when we hear people talk about that, we're like, oh, the light rail, that sounds good.
Mm-hmm.
Or, oh, green this and that, that sounds good.
Yeah.
But what does that mean for us, right?
Yes.
Even if we're in the most impoverished neighborhoods or whatever, we're still paying taxes.
Yes.
So what does that mean for us? And I hate to come in and, but I'm a stickler with big words, because I believe that sometimes there's somebody over there that wants to vote, but all they're hearing is big words. So they don't know what to do, what to say. What do you say to the person that is their first time trying to decide what to do? And you don't have to basically say vote for you, but what do you say to that person that's sitting over there, don't know which way to go or how to go about it? What do you say to them when they're wondering what's happening and their city is crumbling right before their eyes, and they can't navigate how to vote for the hemp or vote for whatever it is, or where are my taxpayer dollars going, whatever? What do you say to that person? I know you say you speak for the community and things like that, but what do you say, because you're saying you're voting, you were once, in the trenches, I'm going to put it like that, and then now you're here. What do you say to that person that's back there that's wondering where their taxpayer dollars is going?
Well, first of all, I appreciate the question and the thoughts, and I would say first that I empathize with them because I think a lot of us wonder where our money goes when we pay for it, and where are the results of what we're putting in as taxpayers. And honestly, so just to be real with you guys, I got into this as somebody who has spent. So I have a YouTube channel. I've got my work that I've been doing, and a lot of that I've put effort into actively encouraging people not to participate in the political system. Namely because of the things we're talking about here, how broken it is, right? And I think that if people are encouraged to opt out, if you could say, or not participate, and then we get engaged in our communities, well, that can lead to positivity, right?
Gotcha.
But if people are just disengaging, becoming apathetic, choosing not to do anything at all, then we know the results of that. Nothing's going to get better, right? So again, I empathize with anybody who's looking at this whole system like, what the heck's going on? Like for me, I don't have a big team of anybody. It's been me and my wife figuring out, hey, how do we file this on time so we don't get in legal trouble? Hey, we got to do all this. Oh, I have to figure out how all that. I'm figuring it out as we go. So I definitely can understand with that. As far as just basic information about voting, I will say that the city and the county this year, and compared to previous years, it seems like they've made an extra effort to make it a little easier. There's a website called harrisvotes.org, just like Harris County, harrisvotes.org. And anybody who just wants basic information from who are the candidates, where do I go vote, what are the times it's open, so they've changed it where you don't have to go to that polling place that's near your house like it used to be. You can go anywhere in the city. Early voting, is Monday. It's today going on, so till 7 p.m. So people who get off work a little late might be able to make it. It opens at 7 a.m. So there's information like that. But as far as more broadly, I think to your question, I think that for me, if we don't start communicating with each other, whether it's coming on radio programs like that, talking to your neighbor, talking to your friends, and I'm not saying I know every single one of my neighbors either. I'm saying what I aspire to be and what I hope that we will all move towards. Because if we don't have dialogue, then the country, the city will continue to break down. I mean, I see. I'm not a politician. This is the only one time I'm doing this. I have no desire to, even if I do win, I'm going to do my 4 years, do the best I can, and then go back to the community because it's not something I want to be entrenched in, become a part of that system. But I see it when I'm on the stage with these other folks, and I see the way when somebody like yourself or yourself asks a question at a forum, takes the time out of their day to come now. These people tell stories. They talk in circles. They don't have a straight answer. They don't have a plan. They got, let me tell you about the time when I was a kid and I did this or that, and then their time's up, and the person's like, did they just answer my question or not? So I'm coming, like, I kind of feel like, hey, I'm with you guys on that. It's weird for me to be like one of the guys participating because honestly, I feel like I'm pointing at them like, hey, I don't know what these guys are up to. So I think it's really going to come down to. I don't think everybody needs to run for office. It's exhausting, it's tiring, it might not be the avenue for everybody, but we all have a different role to play, whether that's a radio show host, a community advocate, being a good older sibling or just a good parent or, being that person in the community or on social media, because that's community as well, that somebody can come to in time of need. To me, those are the community things, and what I've been saying since I've been campaigning is, don't wait till election day to get involved. For me, voting isn't just the day you go put your button on the ballot. Like to me, voting is what we do every day with our actions, right? So I try to, as an activist, journalist, human being, vote with my actions, both in what companies I support, where I buy my food, who I associate with, those kind of things make my life and the actions I take be that vote and that expression, So I think we need to look beyond just go ahead and vote and that's you done your part. Because some folks do that. They vote every 2 years, maybe, or every 4 years in the presidential race. I've done my little bit. I'm going to go back to sleep or go back to whatever else. And that's why we're in the situation we are now. That's why we have a city, a state, and a country where our voices are being ignored. And I think that people broadly feel that from all sides of the political aisle. People can have opposite views and they both feel like they're being ignored. Because the system isn't working for average people like us. It's working for the people who have been there a long time. And that's kind of why I feel like, look, I know it's a long shot when I entered into this race. It was never, the victory for me was never about winning the election. That would be a beautiful thing, and we're still fighting for it every day. Like we can do it, and we hope to. But the victory has been to talk to people, to meet people, to have these conversations, to build bonds, and to keep growing and sharing with each other. So, I hope that kind of understand that you understand where I'm going with that, because I think that we need to find ways to communicate. I, just like anybody, have my days of really feeling like it's over, everything's screwed. There's nothing, just those down days when you're feeling isolated, you feel alone, whatever may be happening in your personal life, and then you look at the world and you're just like, oh man, I don't even want to look. I'd rather just pretend like that's not going on. But the reality is things aren't changing until we do something about it. So whether that means advocating for education about living with HIV or treatment or prevention and these kinds of things, or just going over to your neighbor and saying hi, like I've lived next to you for 10 years and I just want to say hi. We never got to meet each other, I want to make sure I have some bonds with my people. that those are the kind of things that really matter to me. So, you know, if anybody's hearing anything I say that resonates with you, just check out the website. Hit me up, 713-909-0382. It doesn't even have to be about the campaign, about voting. Like, if you've got a project and you see something on my campaign that you resonate with, like, let's work together.
Right.
That's the way I'm coming at this.
Right.
And then towards your, just to address your issue about the climate action plan, and so the mayor has put forward the climate action plan to sort of kind of reach out to the idea of the Green New Deal on a local level. I think that there's some good things in there. I also think there's some wasteful things in there. My vision for kind of an environmental Houston is what I was talking about a little bit with the hemp, but also the community gardens, the urban farms, and to address the flooding issue like you're talking about. We got overdevelopment where they're just tearing down, building concretes, and they wonder, why do we keep flooding? Well, we're building on top of our grasslands, our prairies, and everything that could help absorb the water.
Exactly.
And that goes back to, well, who's getting the contracts to develop these? The people who are making donations to the mayor and to these other politicians. And I guarantee you the other top candidates are getting the same donations from these people because they're like, hey, that guy might win. Let's make sure we got our in when he gets into office or she gets in office or whatever. So, you know, it's not a simple fix one way or the other, because we can say, like, let's keep building the community gardens and green space and everything. But if we keep building, well, we're just kind of like, we're just taking one step forward and we take a couple step back. So I don't know what the perfect answer is. I've tried to bring these ideas to the race. For one, I think people need to accept, and this isn't like, if I had political advisors that were getting paid, they'd probably say, you shouldn't say this.
Right.
This is not a friendly message. But the reality is, I think we live in an unsustainable city. I mean, cities in general are largely unsustainable, and we're living at a place that is at or below sea level here in southeast Texas, depending on where you're at, that we know floods and rains a lot. So why would we continue? Now, of course, we want Houston to be an economic boom, but they're constantly bragging about how we have new people moving to Houston, and they're encouraging it. And I'm not saying we need to build a wall, keep everybody out of Houston, but there might be a point where maybe we're like, we're full for the moment. Like, we need to figure some things out. We need to figure out how we're going to deal with this overdevelopment, how we're going to deal with this flooding, instead of just keep coming, I was just over there. I mean, and they're coming into Fifth Ward, you know, more everywhere. It's happening more and more and more. And it's just, I'm looking at an empty field that, in my mind, I'm like, man, this could be a food forest, this could be a community garden. I've seen it happen in Fifth Ward. I've seen it transform an empty concrete lot into a place where everybody's coming and getting greens. There's music. It becomes a community center, you know. And they put 20 condos in there, and in a space that typically in the past would have been maybe 3 or 4 homes. So you got to think about that. You've got more homes, more families, more cars in less space. So we're talking about traffic, right? And transportation. I mean, so while we're talking about these big plans of metro and we want to expand I-45 and all this kind of stuff, we're still doing the same things that got us in this position in the first place. It's, you know, it's like shooting yourself in the foot while trying to, you know, run a marathon or something. We're not going to get ahead of the game if we keep doing the same thing as usual.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it.
What's your plan for the homeless community?
This is definitely another important issue. I think these all kind of start relating, right? Because if people are getting priced out of their homes, I mean, so I try to volunteer on a weekly basis with Food Not Bombs. Food Not Bombs, for those who aren't aware, it's an organization, decentralized, started in San Francisco.
Food Not Bombs?
Food Not Bombs. So they're kind of an anti-war, pro-homeless support organization. At least that's what they started in the 80s, and kind of now it's just focused on homelessness. But it's decentralized in the sense that anybody can come volunteer, anybody can cook. They serve all vegetarian food, and because of the volunteers have been doing this for a long time, they've got deals with like Whole Foods and some others. So a lot of the food is like organic stuff that the volunteers take home. We'll bring it into my kitchen. We'll just cook up a bunch. Everybody meets downtown at the public library. They feed Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday at 7 p.m. And everybody just comes and helps out. So I've actually got to go there, you know, and not to say that solves the homeless problem, but sometimes people just need a hot meal. They need to be looked at and say, hey, how you doing tonight? You doing all right? Let me help you, let me serve you, and be treated like a human being. And that's how you get to meet them, and you hear their stories. And okay, well, he just missed a paycheck. He's probably here just temporary. Once he gets back on his legs, he's going to go back and continue his life. Here's a young girl being trafficked from Dallas to Houston, trying to get out of that life. You know, here's an older person who, you know, couldn't afford their home anymore. After, you know, there's different stories and everybody. But what the city's approach has been is to criminalize homelessness. Ever since 2012, under the previous mayor, Anise Parker, the city passed what's, you know, kind of known as the anti-food sharing ordinance. It made it illegal to share food with more than 5 people at a time in Houston. So, which a lot of people don't know this. This is a similar law has been ruled unconstitutional in Florida and Denver. I mean, these laws have already been struck down, and there's still a court case going on right now because even though technically, after this thing passed in 2012. We saw the largest coalition of activists come together. I'm talking like 85 different organizations, Muslims, Christian, Jewish organizations, atheists, Democrats, you know, across the board, just huge. 100,000 plus signatures, brought to city council, and they still wouldn't bring it up for another vote. They wouldn't do anything, and they said, okay, well, we just won't enforce it. But technically, it's still in the book, so if they want to, they can. So they've kind of backed off it since then. But then the current mayor, he brought in the it's illegal to stand or sit between 7 a.m. and 7 p.m. in the same spot. So it's just a kind of creative way for them to come up to homeless people like, hey, you're breaking the ordinance. We can take you in if you don't get moving. Then they came up with the 3x3 container. All of your possessions must fit in a 3x3 container. If a cop comes up with that 3x3 container and your stuff don't fit, he can throw it in the trash, you know. And so we've literally seen in the last couple of years when the people come donate around the holidays and stuff, cops pull up with a freaking dumpster and literally just dumping stuff in there. So that's to me is step one. Stop criminalizing the homeless population. Now, obviously, it has expanded. I mean, everybody can see it. It's just it's expanding. I think it's also, you know, the reason we're noticing it more is because they keep shuffling them around. You know, once they started developing the East End, that's when they started passing a lot of these ordinances. So then the folks had to move out of that end. They went over the freeways and they're getting pushed over here. You know, there's only so much people can do. So we want to decriminalize the homeless population. Again, start working with the folks. Get down there. I guarantee you, none of these other candidates have been out there and have actually talked to them. And you know, what's your story? Why are you here? Hey, some of them genuinely want help. Like, hey, if you went down there and said, we got a job for you. We can help get you back on your feet. I met a man who, you know, he was a recovering alcoholic. He had recently got out of prison, and you know, like I understand, he's coming out with no resources. Doesn't have his family's phone numbers or cell phones anymore or anything like that. Doesn't even have the money to get, you know, over there to the other side of town. So he's living under the bridge for the moment. Had a few nice clothes, trying to get himself a job. You know, he's got a little plan together. But those are the kind of people that if you came to them and said, hey, would you like to get a job in these community gardens we're building? Or hey, maybe we start working with the homeless to get them harvesting this hemp and these kinds of different ideas, they would take help. But we also have to understand that there are some folks who do have genuine mental health issues. There are folks who are recovering or currently in the middle of drug addiction. And there are some people who just choose to be on the streets. We're not dealing with just like a one population that everybody's got the same situation. There are, you know, so we need to really look at it. And so far the city's approach has been to criminalize them and count the homeless and then come back and say, hey, we counted them and there's less homeless than there was before. But anybody driving around Houston is like, what are you talking about? Less than before, you know. But they have, the city comes up with these silly creative ways like, we're going to come count them at 12 in the afternoon when most people are either out panhandling, trying to make money, or maybe at a job they got, or just elsewhere sleeping, what have you. And they go around the camps, and if they don't see anybody, okay, it was a 0 here, go on to the next one, you know. And then hey, Denise Parker claimed that she ended homelessness in Houston. That was the big deal during her administration. And the mayor here has continued to say, like, we've, you know, fixed the homeless problem. So again, I think until we can approach the situation with compassion, you know, instead of these little band-aids, like, you know, going after them, it's not solving the problem. And we do have to get at the root of the situation. It might not be necessarily within the city's jurisdiction, but one of the things as a mayor, you talk about kind of about the state of Texas and stuff, a mayor can go to Austin and go lobby for the city and say, hey, we need help down here. This is what, you know, let's get some of that funding that, you know, the federal government's got, or that the state's got, and really try to lobby for the people, you know, because again, I know some friends who are much more versed, who are in the trenches, in the streets, either rescuing kids from trafficking or, you know, 8 days out of the week they're out there, you know, helping people out. And those are the kind of people that I want to bring in, you know, and I want to work with the experts, because I got some knowledge in different areas that I picked up through my research and through my work, but I'm by no means an expert in all these fields, but I know people who are. I've got to know the experts in permaculture, the experts in the environmental sciences, the experts who can come in and who've worked with the community. And, you know, I would look to work towards people like yourself when it comes to the issues that you guys are stronger in than I am, you know.
You know, just, you know, just to say, getting back on the homelessness, Austin has done, you know, the tiny little homes, and they've had so many problems with city council. You know, so can Houston maybe pass an ordinance where it would allow there are builders out there that say that they would build for the homeless shelter. They would build like a small little house, a tiny little place, you know, for them to call home. But getting approved through the city council and having them approve that stuff, nobody wants it in their community. Nobody wants to have these little houses being built for whatever the reason is. Not sure. But is that something that, you know, have you seen? Maybe you need more resources to, you know, to see what worked and what didn't work in Austin. But I just feel like Austin's like, you know, heavy front on trying to get this homelessness, while Houston is in the retroactively saying, we're gonna criminalize you if you feed more than 5 people. We're
I
gonna
gotcha.
criminalize you for being in this spot for more than 12 hours. We're gonna criminalize you for all this stuff, and all that means is just taking them to jail.
Exactly.
All that means
Exactly.
is giving them a ticket that they can't afford.
Cycle them in,
You know,
taxpayers pay
yes.
for it, and just put them back on the streets. No, you're right that places like Austin have taken a more, I think, intelligent, forward-thinking approach. We've even seen reports recently. It's either Austin or Denver where they're paying some of the homeless to go to help with cleaning up trash
Yeah.
and things like that. So again, people who want to help, help them get motivated. That's how you help somebody, in my experience, get out of, get out of those dark places. Is give them something to care about.
Right.
A lot of times when you're on drug addiction or if you lost your job, you might be feeling depressed about it, where you're at, and then you're living on the streets, and maybe you don't want to run to your family and even tell them that you're dealing with that. You're like, I know if it was me, I'd probably I'll figure this out myself.
Right.
Some of us are too proud to ask for help, but if you were given the opportunity to help yourself and to make some money, there's a lot of people who will. So yeah, we have to rethink the way those programs are being done. And on the tiny house thing, I do know there was some activists a couple years ago in Houston who tried to start a similar thing, but you're right, the city has not been very friendly towards that, and that's something that I hope we can change. The other thing on that, I will say, about 3 weeks ago I was at City Council. I try to go fairly often because there's a lot to go up there and let them know how you feel about, and I met this gentleman who went up there. His company, I can't remember off the top of my head, but he is new to Houston, and he was basically coming in there as a businessman, as an entrepreneur, who his business focuses on new emerging technology, 3D printers, and he came in there, and he's a veteran as well, and said, look, I just want to introduce myself to the mayor, to the city council. I'm working on a program where we can start 3D printing homes for veterans and for the homeless, and a lot of the homeless, sometimes veterans end up homeless as well, so there's crossover there. And you would think this guy was speaking a different language, the way the city council and the city and the mayor looked at him, because I just think they're out of touch, for one. I'll say that, just kind of, frankly. But they didn't know what he was talking about. And 3D printing is a fairly new technology over the last few years, but it's not not totally known, but they're just they didn't realize that this guy presented them a golden opportunity. I want to come in and work and collaborate with the city. I've got the business, I've got the knowledge, we've got the technology, we want to collaborate with you. I'm just here to let you know. And he got silence and thank you, have a nice day. I made sure to go out to the hall and talk to this guy and say, look, I'm running for mayor, but outside of the campaign, these are the kind of issues that people need to hear about. You've got a man who's saying he's ready to come in here and work with the city to 3D print homes, which can be printed in hours. Hours, for way less than it takes to build any other kind of home. And so I think the problem that I've seen so far is, where do they go, right? Because like you said, some people are the kind of people who are like, oh, I don't want that in my neighborhood, or they might even just be judgmental and homeless, and then whatever assumptions they got about that, there's probably criminals, this and that, right? So one of our other programs is we've identified that the city has, I believe it's over 400, there might even be more, vacant lots around the city. We've seen them everywhere, and these end up becoming dumping or just used for crime and stuff.
Yeah.
So we have a program that
In my neighborhood.
we're calling, and the Fifth Ward as well, they're all over. We're calling for turning, so let's say we go to your neighborhood and we find there's a dozen vacant lots within your community. I want to turn those over to your community. Now ideally we want to say let's encourage people to build more green spaces, as I say, community gardens, urban farms, but ultimately it's up to you and your community. The city can help with resources, but I really want it to be a citizen-driven program. Again, not like a new bureaucracy, new taxes, but where we get people engaged and active. And so each community is going to look different. Some communities might not choose to participate, others might. But those vacant lots, if we partner with this guy, those could be where you put these 3D printed homes for the homeless, for the veterans, for those who are trying to get a leg up while they learn skills about growing food and get a little bit of knowledge behind them. Maybe I've seen it happen before, and it just takes people who are dedicated to it. It does take funding in different areas, and it takes, I think, working with the private individuals who want to help, because there are nonprofits out there that want to help. There are private companies that want to help. There are private individuals like this guy that we met at City Council who want to help, and it's just about making it happen. So I think, unfortunately, the leadership in City Council is for lack of a better word, they're not progressive enough in certain areas. They're not ready to move forward on certain things, and I think it's because if they don't see how it's going to benefit them, they're not as motivated to move on. Okay, this guy's coming here and talking, but is he donating $5,000 to my campaign or not? Because otherwise, thank you, have a nice day, and But so yeah, I think that's definitely an issue we need to address, and I'm a big fan of the tiny home movement as far as that. Even if it's just a transitional thing for people getting out, and there's a lot of overlap between the homeless issue felons coming out of prison who need to, support services. And sometimes a halfway house isn't the best place to be, because I mean, if you've ever been in a halfway house, there's plenty of drugs in there. If you still want to use drugs, so people coming out who genuinely want to let me stay in my focus, it can be, it's not necessarily the best place to be. So when I'm thinking of the homeless, when I'm thinking of the felons, and I'm thinking of just the disadvantaged, the kind of the outcasts, some would say, right, in our society, who generally are not looked after, these are all interconnected issues. I mean, there's so much overlap. I've been working with a recent, shout out to Patricia, she's one of my volunteers, she's also a Marine Corps veteran, and she's been lacing me up on, just the mistreatment of veterans, on the national level as well as on the local level. And a lot of them are dealing with PTSD from the things they went through. And she's a big advocate of cannabis as well, because she's seen not only what they were giving her, but other friends. In her words, the VA is basically a pill mill. They'll send you home with any kind of pills, any prescription you want, but and so we got people loading up, and to be even more real about it, since for the last 5-10 years, 21 veterans have been committing suicide a day in this country.
Yes.
So people are all about rah 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 on Memorial Day and Veterans Day, but then when it comes to actually treating them when they're at home, they end up on the streets too. They end up out there, using drugs. They end up shooting up. They end up doing things, and people want to say, pat them on the back, think you have a good day, but where were they the rest of the year?
Yes.
So there's some very real issues here that we're dealing with, and I hope that people will.
No, I was just saying, don't get me started. I'm a veteran myself,
so
I just, yes, indeed. I think you.
So you know firsthand experience.
Right. I think he hit the nail on the head. It's so crazy. We ship you out to fight for your country, to do things. And don't get me wrong, I spent 8 years in the military, but when you come back home, that reality is much different, right? You like PTSD, you have all this stuff going on, and then what they do is, don't get me wrong, then I guess I'm going to try to say it in a double-edged sword type of way. The VA is good for this over here, but when you don't solve the core problem, and you just give them pills, like you said, to just dumb it down or make them be able to function, then you miss out on that. I had never heard of so many people, or so many veterans, committing suicide, right? What is that? But if you think about it, some people are not, and I'm saying this in a basic way, but some people are not wrapped too tight to deal with what's going on, right?
No, I mean,
you put a gun in somebody's hand or a rifle in somebody's hand, or M16, and you put them out there on the front line, and let's say they don't get shot, let's say they don't go to war, but maybe the training, maybe the live action that we go through, all of this stuff, the gas chamber, all this stuff that we do, maybe that affects somebody. So they come back, they come home, and they have issues. People at home, oh, you're a veteran, you're good, you're good, you're good. And then you go right back into the backyard. Right, and I hear that all the time. But if you see a veteran, and I've seen a lot of them, especially downtown, I used to work downtown, and you would see a lot of them, and I would talk with them, and I'm thinking, in my mind, what happened? What happened? But I have been in situations where I'm a little bit more forward thinking, so I don't think too hard on that. But if somebody was to come at you with a weapon, what do, right? And then not only that, if you shoot somebody while in the military, then they take you through trial and jury because you shot somebody. Did you do what was right? Did you think about the Geneva Convention? Did you do all of this stuff? And so when you get home, all of that's playing in your head, right? Playing in your head. You have bullets flying over you. You have car bombs. People walking up trying to. It's ridiculous how we stand here and we salute and we promote and yes, I'm fighting for my country. Thank you for your service. Blah blah blah. But when we come home broken, we come home hurt, we come home PTSD, things like that. There's not really enough for us. I'm not saying that it's not out there, right? But when I go to the VA for my checkups and things like that, when I walk those halls, I'm looking at these people and I'm like, these people are really hurting. And probably myself at one point, I'm sure I was in that category, like, whoa, like that. So I came home and I went with a PCP. I went with my own doctor and stuff like that. But then things turned around after my diagnosis and all of that. Then I went back to the VA. But a lot of times what will happen, they will give you pills, like quite a pills. And I was telling Ian, I'm not taking. There's too many pills.
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
why are you giving me a pill for every? I stomp my toe, you give me a pill. I look cross-eyed, you give me a pill. Like, what is happening here? So.
And they're gonna give you a pill to contradict the side effects.
Exactly.
The pill that I'm gonna give
And
you.
that's the point. You will walk out of there and you will have 5 pills in your hand for one ailment.
Yes.
Because of side effects, you
Yes.
got to keep taking pills for that. So I'm not saying do not be healthy mentally. I'm not saying any of that. But I am saying that we do have a problem with that because most of the time people don't know that I'm a veteran. When they start talking about being a veteran and what's going on, I'm saying, well, hold on. Oh, you were in the military? Yes, I spent 8 years in the military. That's not what's happening. I don't know what people have told you, but that's not it.
Yeah.
We need to be able to help our veterans. And then our homeless are the same way. How is it that we do not have something in place for the homeless? If you just
For
go
veteran
down,
homeless.
if you just go downtown and walk between Greyhound, right, and the metro station, that's really just a city block. If you walk, you will see the homeless. If you go on the other side of St. John's, right?
Yeah.
On the other side of St. John's, there are homeless people sleeping out there, and then so you ban us from helping them because it's more of a hazard now, right? But when we come out there to give them blankets in the winter and stuff like that, and because some, like you said, some people will not go and get help or go somewhere that they don't want to do that. So we try to give them food, so forth and so on. Then you have that back and forth. So I just jumped in there. I was just saying.
No,
I just,
thank you so much
know,
for sharing.
I
sharing.
know,
Yes.
like that's not. Yeah.
I just want to add one thing,
Sure.
on, if you don't mind. So, just speaking again to what my friend Patricia was talking about recently, and she kind of touched on some of the same points you're making there, and almost she was saying that it kind of, I think she's past this, but it definitely is something that has gotten to her before, the sort of getting sick of the
Yes.
thank you for your service sort of stuff, because these kind of conversations they'll have. It's more of the sort of Disney version of, oh, thank you for your service. But then when you're like, hey, well, let me tell you how I'm feeling,
Right.
she said, well, then they weren't there. All of a sudden, they don't, like, oh no, let's keep that down. Like people almost feel like there should be some shame and like, oh, I come back and I'm not feeling this. Especially she said, as a Marine, supposed to be tough and this and that, and like, oh, I'm expressing, I'm not feeling perfect, or some things may have got to me or whatever. And then, like you said, kind of looking back on things that, oh man, I was involved in this, or I did that, that stuff staying with you. And so I think that I really just want to encourage people that these are the conversations that need to happen.
Right.
We talked about a lot of good things. Unfortunately, I got to get going in a moment, but I mean, I just want to say that thank you for, not necessarily for your service, but for your service now. You know what I'm saying? For what you're doing now, and for communicating and being open, because I think that's what helps. Each of us can speak to a different people. Sometimes I try to be real open with my story as a felon and the things I went through. And I typically find somebody will come up and say, hey, I never touched a drug in my life, but this is what I went through.
Right.
And you help me relate to that,
Exactly.
And so I think it's important for us all to just put the things out there and make it an open conversation so that people don't have this stigma, on them and feel like, oh, I got to keep this quiet or keep this to myself.
Is there room for one more question?
Absolutely.
I'm trying to keep it short.
Sure.
How do you plan on staying engaged with the LGBT community?
Well, I hope through conversations like this. To me, being part of the LGBT community, being an ally, is more than just going to Pride Parade and things like that. I think that's what some people see it as. It's being involved in the daily conversations, and the daily struggles. I definitely feel like Houston is a place that has a strong LGBTQ community. I got to participate in the Pride Forum a few months back, and that was a really rewarding experience because there's the question. Each forum we're at is tailored to different audiences.
Yes.
Right? So this is the Pride Forum. So this is like, hey, our issues. How do you stand on this, and this, right? So those are the conversations that I want to continue having. Like overall, like my strategy here is more engagement. I found not even just as far as this political race goes, that the problems we're dealing with in our communities, in our city, in our world, I believe come from either a lack of communication or miscommunication, where people are either talking past each other, they're not listening to each other, they're not hearing, or they're just not even talking. There's a lot of assumptions that come on, there's a lot of judgment, all these things come in, and you see it from the macro, to the big to the small, everything. And so that's what I think needs to happen, is that everybody needs to have a seat at the table. Now I don't know if that means the mayor's office creates an HIV committee or an LGBT committee, but there needs to be a regular engagement where people can have that conversation. Currently, the current administration has about 4 town halls a year. I don't think that's, maybe it's too much work, and if it's too much work, maybe you shouldn't be in that position. But when you're living in a city with 4 million people, 4 public town halls a month or a year doesn't provide the opportunity, especially because it's not like we're having a LGBT town hall that for those specific issues,
Yeah.
and then we're going to have a veterans town hall for those. It's just kind of like a broad, hey, give in whatever question you can because that's all the time you got. So we need to just break those doors down. There's too much separation between the people in City Hall and the people who are out here who are paying the taxes and paying their salary, to be frank. You know, I mean, and we also are dealing with the situation where the mayoral position is one of the highest in the country. The current mayor, the mayoral position is currently higher than even a city like New York. It's $260,000 a year compared to some cities that are like 40, 50,000, maybe a more modest salary for a public servant. You know, so I think that's yeah, exactly. Yeah,
I'm coughing here.
yeah. Wouldn't we all be doing a little bit better off?
Well, I mean, I think that's because we don't have a city controller, but still, I guess my last question would be like, do you think we should have a city controller since he had to give us that high raise, that high rate for our mayor? That's ridiculous. I mean, the mayor of Dallas, they get paid, I think, like $90,000 or $80,000.
Yeah, when you look at comparable cities as far as size and population stuff, Houston is way higher than any other city, and that's not always been that way. So I think that there's some people who found some creative ways to make sure they're sitting pretty while they're in office. As far as the city controller plan, I will say this, that on my website, and if you just go to Derrick Broze/mayor, there's the 9 core issues, some of what we talked about tonight, and there's also short 1 to 2 minute videos that basically say, here's the problem, here's the solution we're proposing. One of the main points, like if I could do one thing and nothing else we talked about, it would be to take away the power of the mayor. And I'm the only one in the race that's saying I'm willing to give up some of my own power, and the reason is because all the issues we touched on tonight, the reason that people keep running into brick walls is because the city of Houston has the strongest, only competing with Denver. They're the 2 strongest mayoral positions in the entire country. And Houston's essentially a local dictatorship. The mayoral position, no matter who he or she is, gets to set the agenda for city council. So that means tomorrow when there's public speaking session, right? If you were to call in and say, hey, I want to speak about, LGBTQ issues or HIV issues, they're going to say, okay, that's not an agenda item, so we'll put you at the end. So you're probably going to be up there 2 hours, 3 hours waiting to speak your little 2 minutes. But the official agenda items are in the front. In order for a city council member to get an agenda item on the official agenda, the mayor has to approve it. So let's say that all of us living in different districts of the city, we were calling the city, hey, we're really upset about flooding, we're worried about the veterans or whatever, and we're all calling, we're emailing, even if you end up getting all 16 council members saying, hey, my people are concerned about this, we need to put it on the agenda, we need to have a discussion, and maybe even a vote, the mayor has the power to say no and stop it. And I've seen it happen over and over again. There was even an attempt during Anise Parker's administration where some of the city council members, they put forward a resolution saying, let's change the charter so that we can have more of a voice, which ideally would mean our voices matter more. And of course, she didn't approve it because it had to go through the mayor still. So what I was calling for is a 1/3 rule. So if at least 1/3 of the city council, which would be 5 council members, says, hey, my constituents are concerned about X, Y, and Z, it would automatically be placed on the agenda, which means it could be officially discussed and debated and then potentially voted on. And so the way I feel is there's a lot of good council candidates running, there's other mayoral candidates, but it doesn't matter who wins until that changes. And thankfully, by me bringing this into the race, I'm noticing more and more people are having this conversation, because if that doesn't change, whether that means city controller or manager or something else like that, we're going to deal with these situations into the future. Because I've been trying to get the council candidates, especially the ones who look like they might win the races, like, you need to address this, because all the promises you're making to these people, when you get in there, you're going to hit a brick wall right away, and that brick wall is mayor, whoever. If they're not on your side, the other thing that I found out, and I didn't know about this because, like I said, I'm lacing myself up on this, the mayor votes first. So it kind of sets the tone for what he wants. And because the mayor gets to set the budget for each of the districts, let's imagine you're, somebody like me is like, hey, no, we don't need to do that, I'm voting against that. Well, then when it's time to come set the budget, the mayor might say, you know what, we're going to withhold a little bit of that money you wanted for that new park in your community or whatever. And it can get vindictive and just petty and politics, as usual. So I definitely think we need to take away the power of the mayor, decentralize that, give that back to the city council, and hopefully through that we get more actively engaged people and our voices matter. But as I said, that means actively engaged people. It won't work if we don't play a role too, So
thank you so much for coming on my show. I'm not going to keep you any much longer than those 2 questions, but thank you. And please, guys, go vote. If that's all you guys do is go vote. You can vote for the next week. And then voting day is November 5th. So please
Just one
go-
last thing, there
yes.
are 12 candidates running for mayor. If you've been listening to the TV or the Chronicle or anything,
They
they've
think
told you
that
there's 4,
there's
there's 5,
2.
there's 12 running. There's 12 people running, and some of them are worth your, I mean, I would say everybody's worth your time.
Yeah.
You know,
Right.
be an educated voter.
Yes.
Take the time. You know, if you can sit down and watch, you know, YouTube videos or TV for, you know, an hour, set aside an hour and just look at some of these people. Check out the website, see what appeals to you, and go in there. Make a difference in that way. I'd rather people do that than say, hey, just vote for anybody because at least you voted. Because that doesn't necessarily mean you voted for someone good. You know, be
Yes.
educated. But thank
Derrick,
you guys.
thank
again.
you so much for your
Thank you.
time. Thank you. I appreciate it so much. Ian, before I let you go, I only have 10 minutes left. But something that I just found out today that I was told about earlier about my organization and what I should do about my nonprofit. And I was browsing your Facebook page, and I saw that you posted that you're part of the Montrose Center's incubator project. Can you talk a little bit more about that? I was informed a little bit about it through the Ryan White and Terry. She told me she was Tori. Sorry, Tori. I didn't mean to mess you up. She was like, this is something you should look into. They really foster you and they really kind of guide you into what you want to become, and that's a good way for a nonprofit to kind of get their feet wet while also having a huge organization behind them. And then when I read you, like you said, I'm glad to be part of this ground up. I was like, what ground up? Hold on, what is he talking about? Let me read this article. And I'm reading. I'm like, what? Hold on, I had no idea that you were a part of the Montrose Center helped you with this docu-series. You know, you have. I was like, wow, this is so amazing. So, can you please tell me, or can you tell our listeners a little bit more about how that all happened? And for somebody who hasn't read the article, like what made you decide to search for an organization to help you out in the first place? And then second, once you found that organization, what did they do to help you and your vision? Because that's important. I can say whatever, but if you're not willing to help me out, then it kind of goes nowhere.
Yeah. I had a really different experience with Montrose Center. So they're in their pilot phase of the nonprofit incubator, and so there are quite a few organizations, pretty well-known organizations that have some connection to the Montrose Center as their fiscal agent or fiscal sponsor. And right now, everybody's at in different spaces. So some people just have space, and they get space donated. Some people just they basically have like this brainstorming, networking kind of situation where they're building them up from the ground up, helping them with their application. Me, I really just needed a place to put my money. I was working on a grant, and because I wanted to do the docu-series, it was just something I wanted to do, and it said something about a fiscal agent, and I started reading about fiscal agents, and surprisingly, they always say that the Montrose Center is not diverse, so they don't outreach to certain communities, but I was reaching out to the nonprofits that looked like me, and I mean, it was just a bunch of hoops to go through. Hey, can you be a fiscal sponsor of this? And some of these nonprofits are churches, some of these nonprofits are, affirming churches like that, but none of them, it's, we got to take it to the board. We got to do this. I had recently just started meeting Kent, which is the Chief Development Officer, and I recently met him, but I didn't know who he was to Montrose Center. I just knew that he worked previously at Interfaith Ministries prior to working at Montrose Center. So I was like, well, maybe he would know somebody that would be interested since he has this connection. So I randomly sent Kent a message like, hey, I want to do this project. Do you know anybody that could be a fiscal agent? This is my first time hearing about it. And he was just like, wow, we're doing an incubator, and it's in its pilot phase, and we would love to work with you. And so we got on the phone, and he was just like, "So what do you need?" And I was just like, "A place to put my money." And he was like, "Have you written a grant?" I said, "I've written a grant, but I haven't, of course, it hasn't been approved or anything." And he was like, "Okay, cool." He took it to his board. That next week, it was unanimously approved for me to become a fiscal agent. I've never really.
What is a physical agent, if you don't mind me asking? I don't know.
A fiscal agent is basically a person that gives you their nonprofit status and says that they're going to vouch for you upholding what you're doing, and that you are going to spend the money correctly, and that they will monitor you spending that money. And so the great part about that is I don't have to deal with accounting, and I don't have to hire an accountant. For a lot of people, the normal anomaly has been blessed to get most of the grant funds that we went out for. And so I don't know how us as an organization would have been able to do it had we not had somebody that, could just control the money. But the great part is they are expanding the nonprofit incubator. They want to make it. They're getting some funds to have some staff specific to the incubator, and they've been meeting with some funders. I have been fortunate enough to be a part of some of those conversations, and they are really going to be trying to develop a pipeline to create nonprofits, specifically nonprofits that have an LGBTQ or HIV and or mental health focus, and they have a proven system. I'm one of the few that I'm not necessarily looking to get a nonprofit status. Like the incubator works perfect for me. Fortunately, they just approved my MOU with them, which is the Memorandum of Understanding. It's kind of like a nonprofit contract. So they approved the Normal Anomalies MOU for another year. Likely it will be approved again next year, just because we have a really good relationship and it works for me. But if anybody's interested, when they open it up, it's an absolutely wonderful program. They help you with your reports. I'm different. I'm a little different, but they help.
Well, because you came with your money, which is, when you tell people, I just need somewhere to store my money, I'm gonna be like, I'll be your bank, no problem, and I'll make sure you're spending your money correctly.
Yeah.
Okay, I can do that, but I can understand where a lot of other organizations may say, no, I kind of want to do everything for you. I want to know who you're getting this money with, and maybe examine it. So maybe I guess that's why you had a harder time with somebody else. But it's just when I read this article, that I did not. I'm always learning something new about you, which is awesome. But I was like, it just amazes me that there is such a place out there. I did hear about this a while ago, maybe 4 months ago, when I first started Project Leap, and she's like, oh, because I told her I wanted to start something. I want to start. I don't know if it was going to be a podcast or a radio show, or my original goal was to just do a podcast for people living with HIV, and just get out the community. But I didn't have a location, and then when this kind of fell in my lap, I was like, oh, okay, I can do a radio show. Okay, this is what I want to kind of do, but I feel like there's more to be done.
Yeah.
And that's why I want to maybe link up with them, or when I saw it. I kind of brushed it off when I heard it. I was like, no, I'm not. That's not for me.
Yeah,
I have my own stuff, but I really like that.
What's interesting about this is, and you probably don't know this, but the Normal Anomaly, it started as a blog.
Yeah.
And then it went into a podcast, which then created the
Docu-Series.
So yeah, that's how it starts. When you're creative, the bug bites you, and you're just like, no, it's so much more to do.
Yeah.
And you just find ways to do it.
We were just talking about that.
Passion creates a purpose. Purpose will create your promise.
Yeah, thank you so much, Capri. Thank you so much for coming on my
Thank
show.
you.
Yeah, Any last words that you want to give of wisdom to our show, to our listeners as we close the night on a Monday night?
I do want to say again to you, kudos for what you're doing. I appreciate it. I think it's a great thing. Keep on pushing forward. And for everybody out there, I think what we should do, I can't tell you what to do, but I think what we want to do is to be open to the conversation. Be open
Yes.
to whatever the conversation is. If it's about HIV, if it's about drugs, if it's about life, love, pursuit of happiness, whatever it may be, just be open to the conversation. And I think it'll let me and Josh have an easier job when
Yes.
you're open to the conversation that we bring to you on a daily basis or a weekly basis or whatever it may be.
Yes. I couldn't say it any longer, any better than that. Thank you for my amazing guest tonight. You have listened to POZ Impact. We are Houston's first radio show dedicated to people living with HIV, their friends and family, on Real Talk 100 Radio. Catch us every Monday from 7:30 to 9:30 p.m. Until next week. Thanks, guys. Have a great night.
Peace and blessings.
Send some blessings, yes.